Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Jeff and we are back with another episode of Behind the Glass, and today you may notice that I have a little bit of a different setup. The camera's a little bit closer, I can almost poke you. But point is that hopefully this will solve some of the audio issues. I know that in some of my videos I'm a little bit quiet because I used to have the camera back like 4 feet further so that way you can see my entire space. But hopefully this will solve some of those issues. But anyways, let's actually get into today's topic, which is all about Burnout. Now, I'm not talking about the awesome PlayStation 2 games. You know, have any of you ever played the Burnout series? My personal favorite was Burnout 3 Road Rage or Takedown. Yeah, Burnout 3 Takedown. I think 2 was Road Rage or something like that. But point is, I'm getting sidetracked. What exactly is burnout? So burnout is something that we all go through at one point or another, and it has varying degrees. Do I want to hold these or do I just want to have them here? So I'll have to find a shelf for these. So burnout can actually be classified under a couple of different like severities, sort of, from like just getting bored of a tank all the way to genuinely being burnt out of the hobby and not wanting to do it anymore. But in general, most often, the definition of a burnout is experiencing a very hard stop or dislike of something that you've been doing repetitively. For example, if you've been working at something for 6 hours and you've been working at it for 6 hours out of the day, every single day for 10 days, you might experience burnout from doing that. If you've tried a new habit, then you might have experienced burnout from trying a new habit. You might have experienced burnout from a diet. Same thing can happen with fish tanks. You might experience burnout with just having 1 fish tank or 2 fish tanks, or you might have burnout from having 30 fish tanks all around the fish room or something. The burnout process happens to the best of us. No one is exempt from feeling burnt out of the hobby. It is a very common thing to feel, and depending on how bad you feel about it, it could be reversible, or you might have to have something different to pass your time if you want to get back into the hobby in the future. But the commonality of burnout is quite common. You'd actually be really surprised about how many people experience it. Also, it's very important to note that burnout is not the same as boredom. There's a very distinct difference between being burnt out of the hobby in general and just being bored of a setup. So if you're just bored of a setup, for example, if you're just bored, then more often than not, like maybe changing the fish or changing the decorations or changing the plants or moving decorations around or changing the gravel, changing something about the tank is going to help alleviate that boredom. Maybe you need to upgrade the tank. You can do something about being bored of your tanks, you know, you can do something, and boredom happens from like every other day. Sometimes I get bored of my fish tanks, I'm not gonna lie. We all go through being bored, but being burnt out of the hobby is something entirely different. Maybe something catastrophic happens. Maybe there's an ammonia bomb in your tank and then all of your fish perish and pass on. Maybe all of your plants die and then spike up the ammonia. Maybe something happens where there's a crack in the sealant and then all your water spills out on your floor and now you've got water damage. There's all kinds of different reasons why you could be burnt out of the hobby. So then what reasons could that be for you being burnt out of the hobby? Well, for one, you could have too many tanks. If you have too many tanks and you have like 2 or 3 dedicated fish rooms in your house, or you have like 30 tanks that you have to look after, it can get very tedious. You have to look after every single tank, every single fish, every single water change is monotonous, and you spend actual days potentially cleaning out these tanks, and you find yourself doing more work than relaxation on your tanks. It could be that the hobby is just getting a bit too expensive for you. You probably got like 5 or 6 saltwater tanks that all have different saltwater creatures in them, and the price of salt water and pre-mixed salt water or buckets of salt water or buckets of salt and chemicals and food and all these other things are getting way too expensive. You could have too many tanks and that could be running the electric and water bill up too high. You could be experiencing other things in life that are overwhelming you, so they're taking more mental space in your head than your tanks are, so you may actually be burnt out from other things and that burnout is reflecting in your tanks. You could also be experiencing burnout just from genuine mental health issues. You know, not all of us have the same chemical balance in our brains. So when that chemical imbalance happens and then you start going through like anxiety or for depression, if you do, and you don't want to do anything, and then you look at your tank and you just feel burnt out from just looking at your tank, and it's a really unfortunate situation. Not everybody can relate to that. I can't relate to that, but I've seen and know people that have gone through it, so I know that it happens. But point is that there's a variety of reasons why we might be experiencing burnout. Now, what can we actually do to help alleviate this burnout and help take the burnout feeling away from ourselves? The first thing that you need to do before you actually deal with the burnout is identify what exactly the burnout is being caused from. Is it because you have too many tanks? Is it because your bills are getting expensive? Is it because the maintenance costs are too high? Is it because you have to keep replacing fish? Is it because you're tired of doing quality checks? Identifying the reason why you don't want to continue the hobby is the first step to actually fixing the burnout. Because if you just feel like, I don't want to take care of fish anymore, and then you get rid of all the fish and the tanks and everything, sometimes a week later you're like, wow, I really miss having a fish tank there. And then you just, you spend more money getting it set up again, and then you keep going through the cycle and it doesn't ever fix itself. You need to identify what's causing the burnout inside of your head. And I think that the best way you can actually do that is to just sit. Just sit and look at your tank and think, why don't I feel like doing this anymore? Actually identify a core cause or a concern that you have on why you don't feel like doing this anymore. And if it's a valid reason, like the bills are getting too expensive, I have too many fish, it's just not entertaining me anymore, I don't find any value or joy out of these fish anymore, then that's okay. There's a perfectly valid reason for everybody to experience this. But what matters is that once you actually identify what's going on inside of you or with your life to experience this burnout feeling, then we move on to the solution of this burnout, which could vary depending on what your burnout reason is. For example, if you have too many tanks, you could have a tank sale, and I know Petco allows you to get rid of fish. They won't give you any credit, but Petco will take in abandoned fish, so you can go donate to Petco. PetSmart does not take in fish, so keep that in mind. Same with Pet Supplies Plus. If you have a local fish store near you, like I do in my mall, they'll probably be willing to take in fish and give you store credit, but just keep in mind that for like every fish, it's gonna be like $1 or $2 per fish. So don't go in expecting anything. But you also can't just outright sell or give the fish away to other people without, keeping it under the table. You can't publicly advertise that you're selling or letting go of animals, because almost every social website has rules against animal adoptions because of animal cruelty cases, of course. So if you do end up wanting to give your fish away, you're gonna have to do it under the table, away from the prying eyes of social media, and that could be troublesome. So my advice to you is to either go to a Petco or a local fish store that'll give you credit for your fish, and then sell the tanks and the decorations and everything else separately. Maybe you'll make a couple $100 off of all your tanks, so you can go through with that. And then once you're down to 2 or 3 tanks, that's good enough. Or even just 1 tank. You don't have to have 20 different tanks with 20 different fish. You can have one single beautiful central tank, and that will be more than enough to keep you happy. I promise you that if you just downsize, you'll realize just how much nicer it is to have 1 or 2 tanks, or just a small number of tanks. If you're fine with the amount of fish tanks that you have, or you already only have 1 or 2 fish tanks, another option that you could look into is just redoing your entire tank. If you have a 29-gallon tank that's only full of swordtails and guppies, and you want, say, silver dollars or danios or tiger barbs or something, again, you'd have to donate the old fish, but you can keep the tank as it is. You can bring in the other fish, and then that way you have different fish to look at. You have a different ecosystem going on. Maybe you could try swapping out some of the decorations, or just removing some of the decorations, getting some different gravel in there, possibly bringing in some, additional plants or something. There's all kinds of different things you can do to help with your burnout. But if you're just genuinely not in the hobby anymore, and you truly think that after sitting down with your fish tank for half an hour or an hour or something, and you truly believe in your heart and your mind that fish keeping is no longer for you because it's just getting too strenuous for you, or you have a disability or a limitation on what you can do with your tank, then ultimately it may just be the best idea to let the fish go and just get out of the hobby. And unfortunately, I would really hate for that to happen, but that's just a reality for some of us, is that some of us need to get out of the hobby because we don't enjoy it as much as we used to, or it's just becoming too much. So whatever you decide to do with your burnout, I hope you understand that burnout happens to the best of us. There's stuff that you can do to help with your burnout. And if you do need help with like organizing things or getting rid of fish or something, let me know and I will personally help you. I'll include some of my contact information in the description as well as in my channel. But if you do need help, reach out. You can go to a local fish store. You can post on a group, like a Facebook group or a Reddit group thread or a Discord group about this or something. And you can help with your burnout however way you see fit. But ultimately, I think, again, the most important thing to understand is that it happens to everyone. So don't feel guilty or bad if you do have to make the hard decision to end your hobby or to get rid of some fish and some tanks and just downsize, you know, because sometimes downsizing is what you need to help clear your mind and keep your life a little bit healthier and happier. So I hope that this information has been very useful and helpful to you. Leave a comment down below if you've experienced burnout before and what you did to alleviate it. Also give my video a like and subscribe to my channel if you want to see future content from me, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Have a good day.